Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 13th of August. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. It's great to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines today. Korea is wrapping up last-minute preparations ahead of Pope Francis's arrival in the country on Thursday morning. Local Catholic leaders say the pontiff will use his 5-day stay to embrace people who are suffering. The US confirms it has sent 130 more military advisors to the Kurdish region of northern Iraq to assess the humanitarian situation, but US officials stress the troops will not be engaged in combat. Plus, the World Health Organization says untested drugs can be used to treat patients infected with the Ebola virus. But our top story this morning, South Korea is very proud to welcome Pope Francis to the country this week for a 5-day visit. And ahead of his highly anticipated and historic arrival on Thursday morning, the Catholic Church in Korea has released a special message. Our Park Ji-won starts us off.
Ahead of the Pope's 5-day visit to Korea later this week, the Catholic Church in Korea released a special statement on Tuesday.
I think the Pope's traveling to Korea, the farthest eastern part of Asia, because the Pope wishes to pray for peace on the Korean peninsula and in Asia.
The Pope's visit aims to embrace people who are suffering.
Pope Francis always reaches out to people in need of help and those who are suffering. I believe the Pope will deliver a message of consolation and of hope to those whose hearts have been broken in the spirit of St. Peter.
During his trip, the Pope plans to meet with people from diverse walks of life, including Korean victims of Japan's wartime sex enslavement and the bereaved families of those who died in April's ferry disaster. And now, with only a couple of days until the Pope's visit, the country is in full swing preparing for the Holy Father's visit. The preparatory committee says extreme care will be paid to protecting the 77-year-old Pope, and they are going over his schedule and the rehearsals for the event. An official media center has been set up at a short distance from Myeongdong Cathedral. It will be open from Wednesday through Monday for the some 2,800 reporters from all the world who are covering the papal visit. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Now, the Korean government has designated 150 new tasks to be tackled involving mostly safety issues following heightened safety concerns in the wake of April's Sewol ferry sinking. Prime Minister Jung Hong-won presided over a meeting on Tuesday with the Office for Government Policy Coordination and selected 150 areas to be scrutinized for improvement. Among the 90 areas related to safety, vigilance at schools, daycare centres and senior citizen homes will be strengthened. Food safety and sanitation will also come under special attention. In the industrial sector, companies will be asked to ensure the safety of their infrastructure to prevent ground sinking or structure collapses. Now, measures to eradicate illegal online gambling and offshore tax evasion are expected to be beefed up as well. Currently, a total of 95 tasks are being addressed following President Park Geun-hye's vow to normalise irregularities in society. The Trade Ministry here in Seoul has announced plans to help locally focused small and mid-sized companies find overseas customers as part of a campaign to hopefully create a lot more new jobs here in Korea. Our Song Ji-son has this report.
If things pan out as the government hopes, some 10,000 small and mid-sized companies will find new buyers overseas to more than double their sales in the next 3 years. That, ministry officials say, will likely more than triple the number of workers employed by these companies. They cited a report by the Korea International Trade Association saying job growth at exporting companies is 4 times higher than those relying solely on the domestic market. The Trade Ministry will designate scores of trading houses to help match the companies with foreign buyers and develop a program to dispatch retired trading experts to help them utilize new export channels. In a meeting with trade officials on Tuesday, President Park Geun-hye stressed the need for the government to provide support for the smaller companies that lack experience when they expand overseas.
내수 판매만 하던 중소 중견기업이 수출 시장에 뛰어드는 것은 수영장에서 수영하던 사람이 바다 수영에 도전하는 것과 같다고 생각합니다.
The government will also take steps to make online commerce more profitable for them by streamlining online documentation procedures by the end of this month. In addition, the government will set aside additional $1.6 billion in soft loans to help these new exporters link up with overseas customers and provide better insurance arrangements to protect them from currency fluctuations. 송지선, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now, South Korea continues to wait for a response from North Korea regarding its offer to hold high-level inter-Korean talks next week, next Tuesday in fact, on family reunions and other urgent issues between the two Koreas. But Pyongyang's official media is instead pressing ahead with its hostile campaign against the South Korean government. But Seoul appears determined, though, to try and soothe tensions on the peninsula. Hwang Sang-hee has this report.
A day after South Korea's surprise proposal for dialogue, North Korea threatened further provocation should Seoul and Washington go ahead with their joint Ulji Freedom Guardian military exercises next week. North Korea's state-run Rodong-Sinmun warned Tuesday its threats of retaliation against such war games should not be taken as empty words. It accused the South of turning a blind eye on nuclear threats from the United States, while wickedly pressing Pyongyang to give up what it calls justified nuclear program in the North as a precondition to building trust. This as Seoul awaits Pyongyang's response to its offer for high-level talks next Tuesday at the border village of Panmunjom to discuss issues of mutual concern. Seoul officials have indicated that the South is willing to discuss Pyongyang's demands to lift South Korean sanctions on North Korea and allow southern tourists to resume tours to the North Korean resort of Mount Kumgang. The offer for dialogue followed Seoul's decision to provide Pyongyang more than $13 million in aid through the World Food Program and the World Health Organization. President Park Geun-hye is expected to introduce further measures to better ties in her Liberation Day speech on Friday. The shift in tone comes after months of tensions between the two Koreas. But whether Seoul will stick to its fresh strategy of using the carrot will depend entirely on Pyongyang's next move. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Now, a group of North Korean defectors have been captured in China as they were trying to cross the border into Laos. A close source said 10 North Korean women and a child were arrested in the Chinese border city of Kunming on Tuesday morning, local time, that is. Defectors trying to make it into Southeast Asian countries from China must cross the border from Kunming. But recently, the city has been bolstering its surveillance operations since early this year. In fact, South Korea's foreign ministry says it has contacted the foreign ministry in China and it has called for the safety of the defectors and they actually be sent to a region of their choosing.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. A statue that honours the thousands of Korean women who were used as sex slaves by Japanese soldiers before and during World War II can and will remain in the U.S. city of Glendale. The Los Angeles Times reports that a federal judge dismissed a lawsuit on the removal of the monument last week. The judge decided that the Japanese-American plaintiffs did not prove sufficiently that they had suffered from the placement of the statue in the city's main park. Since the installment last summer, the memorial statue has been at the centre of debate, but city officials and a great many residents want it to stay where it is. According to historians, roughly 200,000 women and girls, mostly Korean, but also from elsewhere in Asia, were rounded up and forced into brothels and raped by Japanese soldiers. Japan is looking to establish 10 inhabited remote islands on its national borders as special border remote islands to promote their protection and development. According to Japanese government sources, a bill is likely to be submitted to Parliament in the fall that will call on the government to construct self-defense force facilities on the islands. Now, candidates for the special border remote islands include the Oki Islands in Japan, and these islands are only about 160 kilometers away from Korea's Dokdo Island, which Japan makes many false territorial claims about. Meanwhile, on a semi-related note, Japan's Kyodo News Agency reported on Tuesday that over 100 senior maritime self-defense force officers paid a visit to the Yasukuni War Shrine back in May. Korea and Japan see the shrine as a celebration of Japan's past militarism, as several Class A war criminals are laid to rest there. And a group of Japanese firms are planning to have a test flight next year for the nation's first homegrown stealth fighter jet. The consortium, led by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, is reportedly developing a jet that has similar technology to the US-made F-35 stealth fighters. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
This is Japan's new generation of stealth fighter jets, the Shinshin. It's 14 meters long and equipped with double engines to produce extra lift and power control mid-air. It's largely aimed at rivaling the stealth capability of China's fighter jets, the Zen-20, which will be combat-ready in 2017. The latest model, manufactured by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, is being prepared for flight experiments in January of next year, and the Japanese Defense Ministry says it's expected to put them into use by the year 2030.
Up until now, airplanes faced risks of damage if the front part tilted upwards. However, with the alteration of the exhaust system, the new model is designed to fly fast even if the front part tilted upwards.
The development of high-tech weaponry by the Japanese government is being met with concerns that it will trigger an arms race in Northeast Asia, already plagued with unresolved territorial and historical spats. It also comes as Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party plans to propose a bill to expand the range of military activity of its self-defense forces in the region. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Now back here in Korea, and the International Congress of Mathematicians opens in Seoul on this Wednesday with the greatest mathematical minds from around the world gathered here in the Korean capital. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning says it expects some 5,000 visitors from 120 countries to take part in this very grand event. The Congress provides a venue for participants to discuss mathematical achievements over the past 4 years and ponder ways to develop the future academic realm. Hosted by the International Mathematical Union and first held all the way back in 1897 in Switzerland, 70 member states meet in different cities around the world every 4 years. Various awards and accolades are given to top promising scholars, including the Fields Medal, which is considered the equivalent to the Nobel Prize in Math. This event runs through next Thursday. 1,800 Hyundai car owners will be eligible to receive up to around $400 in compensation over inaccurate information regarding fuel mileage. But the payout most likely won't be enough to settle a number of lawsuits against Korea's largest automaker. Son Jung-in reports.
In a press release Tuesday, Hyundai Motor said it has decided to revise the fuel economy label on its Santa Fe model vehicles from 14.4 kilometers per liter of diesel to 13.8 kilometers and compensate owners up to $390. The company said the voluntary measure is in response to a ruling by Korea's Transportation Ministry, which said the fuel economy of the mid-size SUV was exaggerated and instructed them to take follow-up measures. Hyundai denies intentionally exaggerating its fuel economy figures and added that some discrepancies could occur in the mileage depending on the standards and methods of calculation. They came up with a $390 figure by calculating the national average for mileage of SUVs, which came to 14,527 kilometers per year. The compensation does not preclude Hyundai Motor from lawsuit, though. The owners of nearly 1,800 vehicles spread over 6 different models, including the Santa Fe, have filed suits seeking up to around $3,000 for failure to state the correct fuel efficiency. A lawyer working on behalf of the group said they cannot accept the $390 in compensation as it is too low, nearly half of what companies in the U.S. would offer. 손정인, ARIRANG News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Wednesday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Mark.
Now, the US is beefing up its presence in Iraq. It's sending an additional 130 military personnel to the northern part of that country.
And of course, we're referring to the Kurdish part of Iraq there. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel saying they will be military advisors and not engage in combat. Now, they are reported to be Marines and Special Operation Forces who will help assess the humanitarian situation in Iraq, working with the State Department as well as U.S. aid and international organizations to develop an appropriate humanitarian response. The United Nations had earlier said that tens of thousands of Yazidis are still trapped on Mount Sinjar and in grave need of food, water, and shelter. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon describing their plight as especially harrowing in his words, as he urged world leaders to do more to help. Now, on the political front, pressure for Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki to step aside is growing. One of his biggest supporters, Iran, has now officially announced it backs Prime Minister-designate Hyder al-Abadi as U.S. Vice President Joe Biden urges Kurdish leaders to work with Abadi. Now, the Ebola outbreak has claimed its first European casualty. 75-year-old Spanish missionary priest Miguel Pajares passed away yesterday after being administered the test drug ZMapp 3 days earlier. He had contracted the hemorrhagic virus while serving in Liberia. This as the World Health Organization approved the use of experimental drugs in the treatment of Ebola patients. Following discussions amongst medical experts, the WHO concluded it is ethical to use unlicensed medication in light of the scale of this outbreak and the number of deaths, which has now exceeded 1,000. The maker of the test serum ZMapp has said its supply is now exhausted after its final doses were sent to a West African nation. Liberia confirmed it is the recipient of those doses, which it said would be used to treat 2 infected doctors, the first Africans to receive the treatment. Hundreds of unmarked white trucks are headed for Ukraine from Russia after Kiev cleared the Red Cross for a humanitarian mission participated by Russia, the EU, and the U.S. But the convoy raised concerns even as it left Moscow to the rebel-held city of Luhansk in eastern Ukraine, as the West is concerned that it may be a cover for an invasion. Russia insists the trucks hold hundreds of tons of grain, baby food, and medicine for civilians trapped in the fighting. The Red Cross said it needed more information and security guarantees from Moscow, while Ukraine says all aid must be delivered by the International Red Cross. And finally, preliminary results of a forensic examination have shown that American actor and comedian Robin Williams likely ended his life by hanging himself. The Oscar-winning actor, who had been battling severe depression as of late, was discovered by his personal assistant in his bedroom in a seated position with a belt around his neck. Williams also had struggled with substance abuse throughout his career. Sheriff's officials said toxicology results will likely take 3 to 6 weeks.
And
a good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the Incheon Asian Games as the KFA's technical committee held a meeting on Tuesday to finalize the roster for the football squad. Now, with the meeting led by the head technical committee, Lee Young-soo, they have finalized the Asian Games roster but will announce it on Thursday. Now, some of the topics of discussion include the 3 wildcard players to choose from, as many expect Ulsan Hyundai Tigers' Kim Shin-wook and Kim Sung-gyu to be chosen as 2 of the 3 wildcards. Meanwhile, Bayer Leverkusen have yet to give Son Heung-min the green light to play in the upcoming games in September, but is expected to be on the roster either way. And now shifting over to golf, where Hall of Fame golfer Park Se-ri announced that she will host her own golf tournament here in Korea, making her just the 2nd Korean golfer to do so. Now, following PGA golfer Chae Kyung-ju and his KJ Choi Invitational, the Park Se-ri Invitational will take place for the first time in the southern city of Yeoju from October 3rd to the 5th. Now, Park, who's known as the pioneer for female golfers here in Korea, became the youngest living Hall of Fame inductee at the age of 29 and has won 25 LPGA titles so far, including 2 majors. And now moving over to baseball, where Japan's Baseball Weekly graded the 70 foreign players currently playing in Japan's MPB. And for Korea's very own Oh Seung-hwan and Lee Dae-ho, they received passing grades. Now, first off, for former Samsung Lions closer Oh Seung-hwan, who's currently playing for the Hanshin Tigers, received an A after posting an ERA of 1.83 and 28 saves this season. The article praised his fastball as he's enjoying a great first season in Japan. Meanwhile, for big boy Lee Dae-ho, who's currently in his 3rd season, he was given a passing grade of C after putting up .303 batting average with 12 home runs and 45 RBIs so far this season. Now, despite a rather low grade, the article stated that his role as the cleanup hitter is worth the contract he received this past offseason. And now finishing things off with some Tuesday night KBO action, the Kia Tigers cruised past the NC Dinos 4-1 with the Nexen Heroes crushing the Lotte Giants 10-1, and the SK Wyverns beat the LG Twins 7-3. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the Tucson Bears take on the Hanwha Eagles. And of course, going into the game here, we go over to the bottom of the 1st. Kim Tae-gyun grounds 1 to 3rd, forced out at 2nd, but an E4 scores Lee Young-gi from 2nd, and Hanwha takes an early 1-0 lead. But the 5th inning of the game, Min Byung-hun at bat with a clutch 2-run single to right gives the Tucson Bears the 2-1 lead. Next play, Jorge Cantu grounds 1 to short, but this error leads to Cantu going all the way to 3rd, and 2 runners to score as Tucson takes the lead 4-1. Bottom of the 7th inning, Tucson up 6-1. Hanwha rallies back to score 5 runs to tie the game 6-6. But we shift over to the 8th inning of the game. Choi Ju-hwan deep to right, gone a 3-run shot, and Tucson takes the lead again 9-6. But check this out, bottom of the 8th inning, Felix P.A., he's going to hit a game-tying 3-run shot again, but in the 9th, with a man on, Yang Lee-ji with a 2-run shot to right, and the Tucson Bears finally win this game 11-9. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, right now we are looking at a mix of haze, dust, and clouds here in Seoul, and the whole nation should gradually become more overcast. And regions down south will receive showers from the late in the evening. 5 to 20 millimeters are expected for the central parts of the peninsula, while down south will receive heavier showers, and it's likely to rain for a few more days, as the southern areas will receive showers till Friday, while the upper provinces will start to see rain on Sunday afternoon. So National Liberation Day on Friday and Pope Francis' beatification ceremony on Saturday morning will be a rain-free day for here in Seoul. And for today, due to clouds coverage, temperatures will be 2 to 3 degrees lower than yesterday across the nation, as the high in Seoul will rise to 27, while Daegu will get up to 29, while Gwangju and Busan will rise to 28 this afternoon. And for other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 28 and 27, while Dokdo should see highs of 26 later in the day. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Okay, well, that's all we have for now, but we'll be back again for another newscast at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.